So I'm not sure, we talked about it a little bit, and I want to expand that a bit. It's like, well, what can I do to get more people involved? And, what is my end goal here? And I don't have an end goal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know me all this time. I want more people involved. I want to share what we have with more people, but that's kind of vague. I don't have a firm objective in mind other than getting it out there. And if people are interested in the content, they'll consume it. Morning, Alan.
Morning, Alan.
You're on mute. He's driving.
There we go. Hi, Chris. Hi, Brian.
Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so he's that's the thing. I mean, Dave Allen had a point that I've got a community of, you guys who are here regularly, and we're all on the same page. We're all interested in more Masonic education, more esoteric stuff. And for the most part, it's a small group, but it's a consistent group that's here week in, week out. And when I look at the metrics, I can see, some people are here almost every week, like Alan here is here consistently. We're all interested, but it's a small number. So I guess I have to figure out what is the most important thing I need to accomplish and how to go about doing that. And he's saying, like, his concern in Richmond, right? He's on the ground working with the different lodges, and he's like the educational officer. He might be the DEO now for his district. I don't know. But he's trying to get more Masonic education out to the new members and get people excited about Masonic education and writing papers and all that. And he says it's like there's a few people in each lodge that are really into it, but they can't grow like a Masonic, like an education club within their lodge. They can't get it off the ground. So he says, you're kind of an example of, you have a good group of people interested in Masonry and education that's far flung. They're not local to Richmond. They're not local to Virginia. They're all over the place. But the people who are there are enthusiastic and they're interested, but you're literally all over the world. So it's kind of different. Whereas in the past, Masonry would be like, well, let me get everybody in Virginia Beach together and get enough of us together to have a Masonic Research Lodge in Virginia Beach of like-minded folks. There may not be enough people, but I've got the interest with people who are far flung, which means that we're online. So the vehicle I have is working as far as having Zoom and Facebook and all. We got 1,800 people on our Facebook group, maybe 50 ever comment ever. So a lot of people are just there, and that's fine. I don't mind them there, but I don't know how to inspire more of them to be commenting. We don't have involved discussion groups. Like I put out things to try and get people to talk. People will like stuff. They may answer a poll, but they're not, I go to some other groups and people are chatting all the time, but then they get trapped in stupid stuff like whether your ring points are in or out, or, irrelevant crap.
Yeah.
It's like,
we could always bring up female Masons and Pride Week for Masonry. That should get you going a bit with that discussion.
Yeah. I don't want to get it. I'm trying to avoid the political stuff. I see that as political myself, but I don't know. I guess it's like I'm still trying to figure out where we're going. And, I guess I need to sit down and figure out what's my objective. What's the most important thing that I need to move forward with this? And really the biggest pain point is right now that I see is getting support, getting other people involved to help carry the work. Because if it's strictly me doing it, I'm passionate as all get out. I'll invest the time. I've got the skills to do it, but I'm the only one doing it. And then I get busy on other things. So of course it doesn't get done. If I'm not doing it, it's not getting done. Morning, David. Still connected. So that's what right now, I think that's my biggest problem is how do I get more people in Virginia Research Lodge to actually be involved and participate and share the load. So I'm not the only one doing it. So one week, if I can't do it, someone else will jump in, Morning, David. Oh, let me make Brian a co-host here.
Good morning.
My lovely co-host.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us, David. I saw your message.
Yeah, that was something when I saw that come across there, and usually I'm not free on too many Saturdays. So,
Yes.
and I'm sitting down in Yorktown now, meeting with my entered apprentice. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he can watch too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
These things are open to everyone.
When I saw that post come across, I was like, I recognize that. I need to go back and look at my jewelry box. I think I got this.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
good. Let me remember what I was doing here. Bob, good to have you with us. Brother Uzel. He was our guest speaker last year, I think. Setups here. Link set up. Just after 10. We're doing good. Hello, Kurt. Close up of Kurt's forehead there. You're on mute, brother.
How are you today?
Good. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Where you hail from, Kurt?
I am from New Hampshire.
Oh,
I represent Federal Lodge number 5 out of Dover.
excellent. Oh, I think you're a first time with us. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be there.
All right. And Brother Uzel, I haven't heard from you, but you're signed in there. Bob was our guest speaker last year. I want to say hi to him. Good to have him join us. He mentioned he knows about Grange too. It was a good topic, I guess. It inspired people to show up. Excuse me. Bob, you want to unmute, say hello? Maybe you're still doing something. And Brother Kanjian, good to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm from Buffalo, New York, Sutherland Lodge number 826, and about an hour away from Grange number 1 in Fredonia.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that reminded me while I'm jumping around getting things ready here. Quado's here. Oh, Bob came in another way. Someone made a comment on Facebook, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it when I give my talk. So if you'll bear with me. Oh, there's Bob. Good to have you with us, sir. You want to unmute, say hello?
Here we go.
Hey, good to have you with us again, sir.
Good to be here.
Yes. And he wears overalls out of dress for the occasion.
Yeah, I do that occasionally. Thought it with the Granger theme, I thought it was appropriate. I'll be retiring in a few years to the country, and I'm hoping to grow a few things while I'm there. So
very good.
Expect to be. I'm scheduled to retire from church in 2026, and rural community in Texas, Freestone County. One of the books I've written is about my wife's family tree that they came from Fairfield County, South Carolina, to DeSoto Parish, Louisiana, Fairfield, Texas. So that's quite an odyssey.
Good.
By the way, I've observed the website in Texas. Most of the Granges are in the San Antonio area.
Oh, okay.
I've never lived where a Grange existed. If I did, I would certainly have tried to join.
Yep. Unfortunately, I had a comment from someone where his wife told him he had to join the Grange, but I can't find out where he made the comment now, so I'm not going to be able to share it. One of the guys on Facebook commented and said he wanted, his wife told him he had to join, I think it was, he had to join the Grange instead of Masonry or something. They had a discussion about it, but I can't find that. I said, well, you need to join our meeting so you can tell the anecdote. He said he wasn't able to be here. All right, it's after 10, so welcome everyone. This is the Unstated Meeting of Virginia Research Lodge, number 1777 out of Highland Springs, Virginia. My name is Chris Douglas. I'm our senior warden and your host for this Zoom meeting. And unfortunately, I will be your speaker for the day. So I hope that doesn't set anyone off. I'll do my best talking about the Grange Ritual. And I want to welcome everyone for coming. Oh, there's my other Kurt. Yeah, I thought Kurt was the other Kurt. We got two Kurts today. That's good. As I was telling some people who came on earlier, we have a new YouTube channel that we're going to be promoting. So I'm going to go in the links here. Excuse me. Go to the chat. Okay, so in the chat we have our typical links. If you want to take a look, if you're not already a member. Our Facebook group is where we list all of our research papers and we promote events like this one, links to YouTube and so forth. You are welcome to post any Masonic education stuff you want there. You may. I hope I don't have a cough for this whole thing. Next is our website where we post all of our research papers. Okay, the next link is our current list of unstateds on YouTube. That's on my personal YouTube channel for Cigar Doug, and that's what's been hosting it because that was easier to get us up and running. But I'm trying to rebrand a bit, and we're looking at other social media. So I've created a brand new, so that link there is to our current YouTube unstateds. You can go there and see everything that's already been posted. The one under that is the Research Lodge one. That's where this video will be posted and all future ones. So we have a new YouTube channel specifically for Research Lodge to kind of separate it from my personal one that's been posting all this time. And we're going to try and promote that one going forward. And I would like you to please, if you're watching this today, like and subscribe. And those of you here, please go and visit the new YouTube channel and subscribe. There will be more YouTube videos up there shortly. I'm going to be working on migrating all of our videos to the new site, and I'm looking at cutting them up into bite-sized pieces. We're still going to offer the full video because I was able to knock out 5 videos in about an afternoon and not really edit them much at all. Where basically I just sort of cut a little off the beginning and just run all the way through and cut off the end. I wasn't really chopping it up, cleaning it up, none. Those run about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So if you want to watch the full videos, they will be available. But in order to attract a larger audience, we're going to be cutting them down into 10 to 15 minute segments, best I can, and promoting those. So you're going to start seeing those on the new channel as I have time to edit them and clean them up. Finally, my email address, if you're not on Facebook and you want to sign up for the papers, you're welcome to message me on Facebook or email me directly to sign up for the papers. So that's what we have going on. Morning, Kurt. Wanted to say hi to you. You signed in there?
Morning, Chris.
Good to have you with us, sir. Yes. So today's topic, unfortunately, and Dave dropped out and came back. Let's let him back in. As I was mentioning earlier, we don't have any more unstated speakers lined up. It's something that I'm responsible for doing, and I haven't had time to line more people up. So that's something I have to go and do. So I didn't want to go too long before our next unstated. So I went ahead and I chose a paper that I'm going to go ahead and present today. So I'll be your speaker for the day. And I'll get into that in just a minute. If any of you are interested in presenting a paper, please let me know. We'd be happy to have you be one of our speakers, but that's a little time consuming, honestly, and I haven't had time to work on it. I've had other things going on. And so if I'm not moving forward, we don't have speakers booked and we don't have unstated. So that's the limitation of having one person driving this whole effort. So I'm hoping to get someone else on board to help start booking people and lining up more talks, because I like having them every couple of weeks. and keep people interested. So we'll keep you posted on that as we go. So I am going to go ahead and share. Let's see. Let's see. Let me go and share. Where is the PowerPoint? Hang on, let me close a couple things here, and I will share with you all. One sec. Let me clean up some room here. What's that? Okay. There. And this, oops, this one. Go back here. Okay. There we are. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can you all see that? Everybody see that okay?
Yes, Chris.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, all right, bear with me. I move around so I can read. Okay, good. All right, without any further ado. The Grange Ritual, a Masonic Harvest. This was originally presented by Douglas L. Jordan, who is a member of Virginia Research Lodge, on June 23rd, 2001. We're all familiar with the idea that a ritual is the characteristic that distinguishes Masonry from other fraternal and social orders. Many of us are also aware that these other orders have frequently adopted rituals that contain strong echoes of the ideas and even the expressions and phrases of Masonic ritual. My purpose here is to illustrate the influence of Masonry and the Masonic ritual on one of these organizations, the Patrons of Husbandry, better known as the Grange. We tend to listen to the lessons of Masonry and forget that although our heritage caused the tools and implements of architecture to be selected to imprint upon the mind wise and serious truths, other implements and symbols may have been chosen. In choosing the farmer's implements and building on the farmer's experience, Oliver Hudson Kelley presented the same lessons, using much of the same language, phrases, and similes as we find in the Masonic ritual, with the added benefit that the members were daily reminded of the lessons as they went about their work. My primary sources are two editions of the Manual of Subordinate Granges of the Patrons of Husbandry. The 10th edition was adopted and issued by the National Grange in 1923, while the 18th edition was published in 1940. In addition, I have visited the numerous websites that are maintained by the national, state, and subordinate Granges to see what the order is doing today. I've also consulted a number of secondary sources on the history of the Grange in order to provide a proper background on the order. These are listed in the bibliography. Following the war between the states, the American farmer, particularly in the South and Midwest, was entering a period of hard times. The war had brought high prices for farm goods, but it was now over. Prices had fallen, but costs had not. Oliver Hudson Kelley, a Minnesota farmer and mason, was a clerk in the Bureau of Agriculture. He was assigned in 1886 to investigate rural conditions in the South and West. All right, please excuse me for one moment. Get it. All right, sorry. Apparently I'm the only person in my house who can let the dog out, so I had to let him out of his cage. All right, let's resume. Kelley was born in Boston in 1826 and became a farmer on the Minnesota frontier in 1846. In 1849, he was the first person to be brought to light in the Minnesota Territory, and he gained a reputation as a Masonic ritualist. In 1866, the Bureau of Agriculture hired him as an investigator to journey through the South to collect data on Southern farms and farming. As a Northerner in the post-war South, he found his reception as a Mason was much friendlier than his reception as a farmer. This led him to the idea that a fraternal organization, having secret rituals, signs, and passwords like Masonry, could help alleviate rural isolation, apathy, and ignorance. It was to be an organization to educate and elevate the American farmer. Returning to Washington in December 1866, he presented his idea to John R. Thompson and William M. Ireland, two government workers who were also active Masons and proficient ritualists. Together with Reverend Aaron B. Grosh, who was an Episcopal minister and author of the Oddfellows Improved Manual, they wrote the Grange Ritual. In December 1867, in Washington, D.C., these four, along with three others, organized the National Grange of the Patrons of Husbandry. Page Smith, author of The Rise of Industrial America, summarized the Grange organization as follows. Modeled on the Masonic order, there were 7 degrees and 4 categories: laborer, cultivator, harvester, and husbandman. The categories for women were maid, shepherdess, gleaner, and matron. The pomona, or hope degree, is the 5th stage for masters. Patrons of the 6th degree made up the National Council. The final degree is that of Demeter, faith. The preamble of the Constitution of the Patrons reads, "The soul is the source from which we derive all that constitutes wealth." Charles M. Gardner in The Grange, Friend of the Farmer, states, "One needs only to hold membership in both these fraternal organizations to note similarities in ritualistic expression, and it's probably no exaggeration to assert that if there had been no Masonry, there might be no Grange today." Kelley was a man with a mission, and that mission carried him up and down the land, east, west, and south, until by 1874, local chapters counted 1.5 million members. This was the Grange's high point. The farmers used their organization to unite against the railroad and grain elevator monopolies and passed the so-called Grange laws in several of the Midwestern states. After a Supreme Court decision, these laws established the right of the state and the federal governments to regulate certain monopoly businesses. Thereafter, the Grange slowly faded. By 1899, membership was down to 107,000. But it then grew again to some 850,000 in 1970, mostly located in New York and northern Pennsylvania and on the West Coast. In this period, it caused Congress to enact the laws provided for rural electrification and rural free delivery. Today, state Granges are active in 36 states and the District of Columbia. Washington State claims the largest membership with 50,000 members in 373 subordinate Granges. The Grange program continues to focus on the needs of the farmer and the rural population, including lobbying for specific bills and providing insurance, but it has broadened to include assistance to the deaf and a program of youth activities. The Grange, the Grange Ritual was published in several parts. The Manual for Subordinate Granges is the only part I have in my possession. Being published in a copyrighted book, it contains no secret work. It does refer to private instructions and the UW, or unwritten work, which from the context are the ciphered, secret, and unwritten work. In addition, rituals exist for the Pomona, or county, state, and national Granges. In describing the layout of a Grange hall, I will use the terms north, south, east, and west since the present audience well understands the references. However, these terms are not used by the Grange. I've also copied diagrams from each of the rituals to help you visualize the proceedings. The room is laid out much like a Masonic lodge. An altar is located 1/3 of the way from east toward the west, and a cloth or mat is placed midway between the west and the altar to mark the location for members to stand while addressing the overseer in the west. In the east of the hall, there is a stage on which sit the 3 graces, Ceres, Pomona, and Flora, goddesses presiding over cereals, fruits, and flowers. Ceres, as the goddess of cereals, is in the center of the trio. No one is permitted to pass between Ceres and the altar except when an officer in the performance of his or her duty. The master sits at a desk in the southeast. On his desk is a box containing miniatures of the implements or working tools of the farmer. Only those implements appropriate to the current and preceding degrees are displayed. To the right of his desk is the American flag. The chaplain is seated in the south. In the west is the overseer with the assistant steward, AS, seated in front and toward the south, and the lady assistant steward, LAS, seated in front and toward the north, similar to the placing of the junior deacon and marshal in a Virginia Masonic lodge. The steward is stationed in the northwest at the door of the anteroom. In the anteroom, the gatekeeper stands guard with his gatekeeper's staff, 5 feet long and surmounted by an owl. The treasurer and secretary sit at desks in the northeast, while the lecturer sits in the north. In the 1923 installation ritual, only the 3 graces and the LAS are noted as being sisters. However, the 1940 ritual allows for installing women in all offices. This acceptance of women and also youth as full members made the Grange very much a family organization, and I note that a number of ladies are state masters. The steward and his assistants carry staves of office. These are 6 feet long and black. The steward's is a spud, while the assistant steward's is a pruning hook, and the lady assistant steward is a shepherd's crook. So much for the general layout. Let us turn now to the words of the ritual. I will not spend time commenting on them, since the similarities will be obvious to you as they are to me. I'll present most of the ritual for opening and closing the Grange and some excerpts from significant parts of the degrees. In this, I'll be assisted by several of the officers who have been giving scripts to aid them. So I guess when this was presented, he had several people, officers in the lodge, who would help him read the ritual. I'm going to take a pause. That was about 10 minutes. I would like, if there's any questions about the part I've already covered, in the second section, I'm going to cover the ritual. So any questions on anything we've done so far? You need to unmute, Bob.
Just want to show you, I have a very old book in my library. I got it at a book sale one time, The Granger Movement. The author is Salon Justice Buck. This was published in 1913. And the author observed that as the book was about to go to press, he received word that Oliver Hudson Kelley had just passed away in Washington, D.C. So that was quite interesting.
Oh my. All right. Any questions or comments before I continue with the ritual portion? Okie doke. Let me share yet again. Okay, can y'all see the PowerPoint again? Everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right, so we're going to continue. This is part 2. We're talking about Oliver Hudson Kelley was the founder of the Grange, and we're just getting into the ritual. So I'll leave it on this page for you all to follow along. As you would expect, a Grange meeting starts when the master gives one rap and says, "The hour of labor has arrived, and the work of another day demands our attention. Let each repair to his or her allotted station. Worthy overseer, are all present correct? Worthy steward, you will ascertain. My assistants will make examination and report." The assistant steward and lady assistant steward take their staves and advance to the altar, where the assistant steward opens the Bible. They then return to the overseer and are individually given instructions which are not written. The assistant stewards then proceed to take up the word from all present, working from the east to west to east, return to the overseer and report. He in turn says, Worthy Master, we find all present correct. Worthy Steward, are the gates properly guarded? Examines and finds gatekeeper at his post. They are, Worthy Master. Worthy Steward, inform the gatekeeper that we are preparing for work. Steward opens wide the inner gate. Brother Gatekeeper, the Worthy Master directs me to inform you that we are preparing for work. Gatekeeper closes the outer gate. I therefore close this outside gate in faith, hope, and in charity, and will guard it with fidelity. Right, Worthy Gatekeeper, and now, Worthy Chaplain, as laborers under the great Master of the universe, let us bow in prayer. Calls everyone up. Almighty Father, maker of heaven and earth and giver of all good, we return our heartfelt thanks, and we are called to lay down our implements on earth. May we enter the paradise not made with hands, eternal in the heavens, and receive that welcome plaudit. Well done, and good and faithful servants. Amen. The opening song is then sung, followed by, Worthy Steward, please close the inside gate. In faith, in hope, and in charity, I close this inside gate and will guard it with fidelity. At this point, the Grange salutation is noted as being given, but because it is the unwritten work, I cannot provide any enlightenment on its nature. Following the Grange salutation, the Master says, in faith, in hope, in charity, and with fidelity, this Grange is now open in ample form in the 4th degree. Worthy Overseer, please proclaim it accordingly. By command of the Worthy Master, I proclaim this Grange open in ample form for promoting the welfare of our country and of mankind, and for advancing the interests, elevating the charters, and increasing the influence of all patrons of husbandry by properly transacting our business and by exemplifying our principles in faith, in hope, and in charity with fidelity. Flag is saluted while the Star-Spangled Banner is played, a ceremony adopted during the 1930s, and the business then proceeds in a normal business order. As with lodges in Virginia, the minutes are read and adopted prior to the closing ritual. One italicized note in the ritual will strike a familiar note for the more senior members present. At special meetings for conferring degrees, open the Grange in 4th degree, then close in the 4th degree and open the degree to be conferred. When the degree work is completed, reopen in the 4th degree. After adopting these minutes, the Master proceeds to close the meeting. Worthy Overseer, are the labors of the day completed? They are, Worthy Master. As there is no more work for us today, the stewards will see the implements are properly secured for the night. The assistant steward and lady assistant steward advance to the altar and close the Bible, while the steward goes to the Master's desk, receives the case of implements, closes it, and returns to his station. All is secure, Worthy Master. Calls everybody up. Brothers and sisters, as we are again to separate and mingle with the world, let us not forget the precepts of our order. Let us add dignity to labor, and in our dealings with our fellow men be honest, be just, and fear not. We must avoid intemperance in eating, drinking, and language, also in work and recreation, and whatever we do, strive to do well. Let us be quiet, peaceful citizens, feeding the hungry, helping the fatherless and the widows, and keeping ourselves unspotted from the world. The closing song is sung, and the Grange salutation given as at the opening, and then, Worthy Overseer, please proclaim the Grange closed. By command of the Worthy Master, I proclaim this Grange duly closed until again lawfully opened in faith, in hope, in charity, and with fidelity. So be it, and I'll repeat, so be it. The chaplain then gives a benediction and the gates are opened. I'm sure you've recognized ideas, phrases, and expressions that are found in our lodge ritual, as well as the ritual of other Masonic bodies. In order to bring out these points more strongly, let us examine portions of the degrees. There are 4 degrees in a subordinate Grange. The 1st degree represents springtime and preparation and teaches faith. The 2nd degree represents summer and culture and teaches hope. The 3rd degree represents autumn and the harvest and teaches charity. And the 4th degree represents winter in the home and teaches fidelity. There is no catechism to learn. However, the 1940 ritual contains a requirement that candidates for the 3rd degree must be tested on their knowledge of the Declaration of Purposes before being permitted to receive the degree. The 4 degrees are very similar in structure. In each, the candidates are led through the door and around the hall to the various stations for examination and instruction. However, blindfolds are used only in the first degree, and the obligations for the last three are primarily ones of secrecy concerning the content of the particular degree and a promise to be true and faithful, to perform the duties of the order, and to aid others in the same. For the first or preparation degree, the candidates are blindfolded by the assistant steward and the lady assistant steward in the preparation room, and the ladies' dresses are covered by cloaks. If only one candidate is present, someone will be appointed to balance the group. An alarm is then given at the inner gate. Worthy overseer, an alarm at the gate. See who approaches. Who comes? Men and women seeking employment who desire to assist in our work. Are they unconstrained and willing? They are. Have they been tried and found worthy? They have. You will tarry while I ascertain our worthy overseer's pleasure. Worthy overseer, the alarm comes from strangers seeking admittance. Satisfy yourself that they are worthy and well qualified, and if so, admit them. Opens the inner gate. None but those worthy and well qualified can enter here. It is the pleasure of our worthy overseer that you enter the field with this caution. Use discretion. Respectfully obey all order, and should work be assigned to you, labor with diligence. Let our future conduct prove us so. The candidates are then led in by the assistant steward and the lady assistant steward in a double file with the ladies on the right, each with their left hand on the shoulder of the one ahead. They circumnavigate the room to the overseer, where they are introduced and greeted with a short lecture on the significance of the Grange and of this degree. They then proceed toward the lecturer, who stops them with, "Hold!" All members clap. "Who are these who trespass within our peaceful enclosure?" "Friends who desire to be initiated into the mysteries of our order." "By what token may we prove them?" "By this signet." "Present it." AS presents a card bearing these words: "An honest man is the noblest work of God." "Right, brother. Conduct them to the worthy overseer for his examination." The chaplain delivers a prayer as they are conducted toward the overseer. Along the way, the steward meets them in the guise of ignorance and suggests them to give up their search for light. However, they persevere and arrive at the overseer, who asks a set of questions similar to those asked by the steward at the door. He ultimately says, "We have confidence that you will persevere, but before assigning you a place in our work, it is necessary that you give us a solemn pledge, which will not conflict with your moral, social, religious, or civil duties. With this assurance, are you willing to proceed?" Upon their assent, they are placed in two lines, the men on the north and the women on the south of the altar, and the worthy master administers the following pledge. "In the presence of our Heavenly Father and these witnesses, I do hereby pledge my sacred honor that, whether in or out of the order, I will never reveal any of the secrets of this order, nor communicate them or any part of them to any person in the world, unless I am satisfied by strict test or some legal manner that they are lawfully entitled to receive them. That I will conform to and abide by the Constitution, rules, and regulations of the National Grange and of the State Grange under whose jurisdiction I may be, and that of the subordinate Grange to which I may be attached. That I will never propose for membership in the order, nor sanction the admission of anyone who I have any reason to believe is an improper person, nor will I oppose the admission of anyone solely on the grounds of a personal prejudice or difficulty. I will recognize and answer all lawful signs given me by a brother or sister of the order, and will render them such assistance as may be needed, so far as I may be able and the interest of my family will permit. I will not knowingly wrong or defraud a brother or sister of the order in word or deeds, nor will I permit it to be done by another if in my power to prevent it. Should I knowingly or willingly violate this pledge, I invoke upon myself suspension or expulsion from the order, and thus be disgraced among those who were my brothers and sisters. They are then directed for the overseer for further instruction. My friends, to primeval darkness covering the face of the deep came the command, "Light be!" All present give a salute with a single clap of the hands, while the blindfolds are removed from the candidates' eyes. Lectures are then given by the overseer considering the need for brotherly love, by the steward concerning their duty to care for the farm animals, and by the chaplain concerning the place of agriculture as the first and noblest of all occupations. The master then teaches the use of the implements of the degree. Each degree has its own set of implements. First, or preparation degree, the axe, plow, harrow, and spade. Second, or culture degree, the hoe and pruning knife. Third, or harvest degree, the sickle. Fourth, or home degree, the polished agate. The first of these serves to illustrate these teachings. The axe is used to cut away obstructions in the field and to prepare timber for use. Its use teaches us perseverance in overcoming obstacles. For as by repeated blows it cleaves its way through the hardest wood, so should we by repeated trials surmount every difficulty. Later, the steward in a lecture says to the ladies, "Sisters, you entered here blinded and covered with that garment. Before you were placed ignorance and knowledge. You were allowed to choose for yourself, and you chose wisely and found light. Wearing that garment is to teach you that those we admit into our circle are not chosen by outward appearance, and that we are not deceived by display in dress. Remember that a noble mind and generous heart are often concealed beneath the garments of poverty." Removes the cloaks. Although I suspect that the secret instructions of this degree that the master then imparts would have some similarity to things we all know, they are contained in the unwritten work and not in the manual. For the first degree, there is a signal and password at the outer gate, signal and degree words at the inner gate, sign and salutation of the degree, and the sign of caution, sign of distress, and patron's general sign. Each of these other degrees has a similar set of signals and words. In addition, in the fourth degree, the patrons are given the voting sign, the sign of recognition, the grip, the patron's test, and an annual word that changed every year. Each of the degrees ends with lectures by the three graces, followed by the master's charge. A unique feature of the fourth degree is the harvest feast that is enjoyed by all just before the master's charge. Grange dinners were justly famous. Conclusion. It's intriguing to note that Robert Morris, who was founder of the Order of the Eastern Star, was also born in Boston about the same time as O.H. Kelley. In 1867, the Eastern Star Ritual was being written by Robert McCoy in Richmond based on Morris's notes. Those who are members of that organization will have noted similarities in the Grange Ritual. Since both were being written by Masons at the same time and only 100 miles apart, one can only speculate on possible mutual influences, but that's another paper. And finally, the Grange Ritual of 1914 contains some instructions for effective meetings that are equally applicable to Masonic meetings of today. In a well-ordered Grange, the business will be disposed of expeditiously, so that the literary program may be started at a reasonable hour and closed likewise. It is a grave mistake in the Grange procedure to so prolong Grange meetings that members will become wearied and in consequence be disinclined to come again. Long, tedious Grange recessions are an inexcusable waste of precious time and should never be permitted. And so with that injunction in mind, I must now end this presentation. And I'm going to share the website for the National Grange real quick. Okay, you all see this? This is the website of the National Grange. I was surprised when I went and looked this up that they're still quite active. They have current information. And it's very nicely put together. I liked everything they had in here. It's very well organized, very well done. And this is, again, the national one. I don't think that the Grange went outside of the United States, but it was very, it's still active today in many parts of the country. And they have a lot of information there. Any questions, comments?
I've done quite a bit of study on the Grange over the years and lectured on it to different classes. I know that there's a bunch of interesting stories. There was a little farm woman who weighed less than 100 pounds. I don't know her name. I don't know what city or state this was in. But she was at a Grange meeting one night. She stood up and asked a question. How come my family who live in the city can have mail delivered to their house and I living in the country can't?
Right.
Well, that's where the idea of RFD, rural free delivery, developed. Parcel post came later. And many programs that we take for granted today were there were a whole series of Granger laws that were passed by Congress. And like rural electrification, rural telephone service, 4-H programs, things of this nature were Granger ideas that eventually came into vogue. And so very few people know about this organization. That's a shame because it has had such a positive impact. And as you say, it still exists. And as I say, I've never lived anywhere close to one. And if I did, I'd join.
Yeah. Yeah. He mentions, Brother Jordan mentions those briefly at the beginning of the talk. That is pretty impressive that it was obviously any Mason can hear the ritual and say, oh, that is similar to Eastern Star or Blue Lodge. But so Brother Kelley structured it, drawn on Masonic ritual forms, but it's interesting that it was focused so much. I found it interesting how their symbols were the tools of the farmer as far our tools of the laborer, the craftsman, the square, level, plumb, trowel, all of those. But they taught similar lessons using different implements. It's almost like an alternate reality where masonry didn't exist, but farmers started it instead of temple builders. But this was started by a mason here in our reality. But really, it was interesting reading through that. It's like that sounds so familiar. But they did have, unlike Masons, Masons, I'm sure, had an individual effect, being leaders, being mayors, city council, being school boards. Masons were active at the local level everywhere in our country in the political realm, but as individuals, it seems like the Grange managed to actually implement specific laws, specific programs that I don't think Masons ever did. You can't point to one program that you can say the Masons got together and made that happen, right? Other than a lot of Masons were involved in the Constitution, you could say a lot of the principles of the Enlightenment and of Masonry were supported by and embraced by the founders, whether they were Masons or not. The ideas of the Enlightenment and the rights of the individual and all were put into the Constitution. But as far as specific laws, you can't say the Masons got anything passed on that scale. So.
That is correct. And one other thing, an issue they were really concerned about in the early days was railroad regulation. Farmers use the railroads to get the crops to the marketplace. And if railroad companies are engaged in price gouging, that certainly hurts farmers' profits.
Yep.
And so it's understandable why they would be concerned about that. When they established insurance companies, credit unions, grain elevators, it's just a phenomenal amount of stuff the Grangers did. And I don't remember the guy's name, but my son once pointed out to me about, well, I saw this, he gave me the name of the bass player for the band Nirvana was a member of the Grange.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember his name, but.
Oh, that's interesting. Other comments?
I just want to say this has been a very interesting topic. I love this because we some of us can take this back to our lodges and talk about this and say, hey, this is what these guys did, or gals as well, and maybe we could be inspired to go out and be more active in our communities and service the community in other ways, like like this fraternity did.
Yes, I would submit in some areas, and this is why the modern our modern version of Masonry that we enjoy now, it's a hobby, it's a social club. We're in it, and those of us who are in it enjoy it, but we are not influencing the world, I think, on the scale we once did, and maybe just because of the way it's evolved over time. Like I joke about living where I do at Hampton Roads. People live in one city, work in another, and go to lodge in a third. So it's really difficult if my lodge decides to have like a adopt a highway, adopt a street program. Very few of us live close to the actual lodge building. So it's hard to get us motivated to drive to another city to do some charity for our local community because it's really not our community. Now, it may be different here than other places, but I keep imagining living in a small town, even here in Virginia, where you have the town, people are farmers or whatever, but they work and they come into town for business and all. There's one lodge for the town, maybe one Eastern Star chapter for the town. All of the Masons in the area belong to that lodge. So if they want to do some kind of program within the community to get public interest and to share, to serve back to the community, everybody lives there. So it's easier to get people together. You have much more of a sense of community and a tie to where you live in those smaller towns than you do in the bigger cities. I mean, where I live, it's not, you have 7 different cities in my area. If they were one city, we would be the largest city in Virginia. We'd have like 2 million people or more. But because we're kind of separated, we're kind of a big city in a sense. And people, the individual lodges, for the most part, we're not really connected to the community where we are. There are some exceptions, but I think in the bigger cities, it's harder to do that. Like someone told me that in New York City, all the lodges meet in one building downtown. So it's really hard to get a sense of connection where this is our lodge. We all live, within walking distance of our lodge practically, and we all involved in the community because we're all here. That's simply not the case for most Masons. So the Grange strikes me as it was on more the model of how Masonry is in the Midwest, where there's a Grange chapter, whatever it's called. I forget what it's called. But all the farmers in that area come into town and there's a Grange hall that meets, and that's where you attend. All of you are committed to that community because it's literally your community. You're involved and it directly affects your business. There's very little that Masonry does that affects what I do for a living. Whereas for the Grange, everyone present is presumably a farmer or invested in farming in some way. So what's happening in the local community, they use the Grange to bring about laws. It's sort of a kind of like a union hall of sorts, but it's a way of bringing the people together over common economic issues that affect all of them. So that's why maybe they were inspired to use the Grange as a vehicle to make change in the laws because all of them were invested in it. Whereas we're kind of disparate and across every strata of social and economic levels, we're all different professions and whatnot. So that may be a reason as to why the Grange did what they did and we haven't. Perhaps. Other comments? Anyone? I noticed we lost Dave. I'm sorry. I said to go work with this guy. I will say one thing. This brought to mind the fact that there are women in the Grange. Right from the beginning, the women and men both have equal offices. And then in 1940, any woman can be elected to any office within a Grange. So for the people who talk about Masonry needing to be, pro-Masonry and allow women to join and whatever, I always say in response, it's like, look, Masonry's been this way for 300 years. This is how we are set up. If you want to start a brand new organization today because you think that men and women are equally interested in being in this kind of organization, then by all means start one. So now I have an answer. It's like, go find a Grange. If it's that important, if you think there are enough women who really want to be in a fraternal organization with men, then go start one because Masonry is not going to change and allow women in. We're just simply aren't.
I believe her name was Caroline Hall, the niece of Oliver Kelley, who persuaded her uncle to admit women to the Grange. And as far as, organizations going co-ed, I know we've had to deal with this off and on over the years, but I do know the Oddfellows and the Elks now admit women on an equal basis.
Right.
And I remember it was sort of funny. Back in '88, I went to the Philaxis Society convention, in New Orleans. At the time, Earl Bradford was the Grand Master of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Louisiana. And he told a story that a woman wanted to join the lodge and was turned down, and she was going to sue. And he and his officers met with her at a Louisiana motel and talked her out of filing suit. But he wanted it known it wasn't the same motel that Jimmy Swaggart had patronized. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember. I have sinned. I wonder. I guess. I mean, it's interesting because I mean, Masonry is what it is. But honestly, and I have nothing against it. There are a few women out there who want to be Masons. It's a very small number. It was successful in France. There's places where they've been around for a couple hundred years, and the UGLE kind of toys with, well, we know they exist, but they're not regular. So it's kind of like they walk that line. But there appears to be inroads in the U.S. of starting female Masonry. If you want to get people stirred up, bring up co-Masonry on a Masonic chat and just what's disappointing to me is the guys who act like they never heard the idea before. That's the part. You would think at this point, we'd all know that co-Masonry exists and understand it. The shock of some people, it's like, it exists. It's been there. I'm just disappointed that you all act like you never heard it before because it's been brought up enough times. But I sincerely don't think there's enough of an interest. Because honestly, if there was, Eastern Star would be flooded with women who want to be like Masons. And they will be complaining because Eastern Star is nothing like Masonry. I've never met one lady in Eastern Star who ever said, I really want to be a Mason, and that's why I'm here. So to me, the notion that there are this huge untapped resources of women who want to be Mason, and if we would only change Masonry and allow women in, we would be saved, and we'd double our membership overnight because all these women want to join us. Like, I don't see it. I just don't see the interest. Now, if in 10 years, the largest Masonic lodges in America are those that are co-Masonry, well, then they prove me wrong. But I just don't see that there's a demand. And that's how it is. If I started Masonry today, I probably couldn't get away with having an all-male organization. Starting one today. But I don't honestly think there's a demand for it. And there's nothing against women who want to be Masons. I imagine there are a few. But, you know, Masonry as a whole is not going to change to let women in. It would totally change our structure.
Several thousand in the UK and 2 female lodges. And 300 female women lodges as well.
Yeah. I know, and it's existed for a time. It has existed in France. It's hardly a new thing. And they're
exactly.
the only what's that?
They were formed before Grand Lodge of England was formed.
What, co-Masonry? No. The earliest ones were like the 1800s.
No. They were going in France long before we came along.
Well, that'd be interesting. Everything I read about it showed when they showed up, the first one. It was the Le Droit Humain and all that was well after the first Grand Lodges in France even were founded. But
I'll try and find some links.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, that's all I have. If there's no more comments,
I want to say,
please.
On the question about co-Masonry, I'm not sure about now. At one time, there was a lot of overlapping in membership with co-Masonry and the Theosophical Society. And some of the groups like the Liberal Catholic Church, which is an old Catholic church, that's a tradition separate from Rome. I don't know how much overlapping membership there is now. I do know about Theosophy, though. Annie Besant, I may be pronouncing her name wrong, one of the early leaders of Theosophy, was also a very prominent co-Mason.
Okay. I remember in writing the paper I did on the Grand Lodges of France, it was interesting that there is co-Masonry basically covers 3 different things. There are lodges under the rubric of co-Masonry. There are all male lodges, there are all female lodges, and there are mixed lodges with both men and women. And there are people who are, even within that group, There are some who think mixed lodges are okay, but all female lodges are not okay. And there are ones that are all female that say the idea of a mixed lodge is not okay. They want it to be all women. So there's not, and it's funny. All of France was just it was just peering into that, just looking at the Grand Orients of France and all the different ones that have come and gone. And there's like 20 or 30 of the larger ones that I counted that are still around today. There is so much difference of opinion, and it seems like Freemasonry in France is very, very fluid, and there's very much an interest in it, and there's constant division and splitting off and coming together and splitting off again and coming together. So there's no real consistency. It's very easy, apparently, in France to start a new Grand Lodge and take a handful of lodges and go off in another direction. Whereas opposed to here in America, we're all well established. The Grand Lodges are where they are. You don't ever hear of us splitting off and forming new ones from each other and all like that. It's pretty much nailed down. Whereas in France is very much fluid, and there's always disagreements back and forth. And the way they do business is quite different from us. In some cases, the more prominent Grand Lodges in France are very much involved in politics, like very much, like they constantly pronounce and try and influence public opinion on issues of the day. Whereas here in America, it's like, we don't get into politics at all. We don't talk about it in lodge. You're never going to hear the Grand Master come out there and say, we need to pass this law, or we need to back this. We don't get involved at all. Whereas in France, very much more, a very different scene completely over there. This is an interesting scene.
I do remember a time, however, when some Scottish Rite leaders were speaking out very vocally against parochial school funding and
yep,
it's related to church and state. But I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah, it's in the tenets of the Scottish Rite that we fully support the public schools, and we talk about it a lot. And DMLA does that as well. That they say, we're firmly support the public schools. But as far as coming out, I mean, it's sort of like, it's one thing to say when you join, hey, Scottish Rite, we support the public schools. Oh, okay. There's a difference between that and leaders of the Scottish Rite going out to the public at large and speaking against, student vouchers or, funding private schools, whatever. That's the line we're currently, I don't think, where we can believe whatever we want and we can tell our members this is what we believe. But as far as if the outside world is concerned, if you say, well, do you know what the Scottish Rite thinks about public schools? The average person say, who? And no, I have no idea. So I guess that's the difference, is the public hearing from us in a very public way what we support. We clearly don't do that. All right, as I like to thank everyone for coming today. Please like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. We have a new channel, so y'all please visit the new channel. I'm going to promote it on Facebook and get people to sign up over there. And we're going to be migrating all of our videos over to the new channel as soon as we can. We're also going to be going to other social media platforms such as Instagram and so forth, and I'll be talking about that more on Facebook. So we're trying to push our social media presence out there and expand beyond Facebook and Twitter and trying to reach a larger audience. And we're going to be changing up how we do videos and trying to have more videos that are shorter to attract more interest on YouTube and Instagram and so forth. So hopefully we'll try and get more interest going and maybe get more people coming to these meetings if we're reaching out to more people. So again, brothers, thank you all for attending, and you all have a great day.
Thank you.